My name's Sarah. I think I've spoken to a number of you already. I'm Sarah from Sparkline. I lead the HR and education part of our business, so focusing on the internal teams and building our teams, as well as external training programs and initiatives, and really helping people to invest in themselves in terms of training and education, which is where it really kind of links back to working with people like us in tech. And really looking at how we can help our communities of people in our field, and then namely, obviously the topic of this conversation is women in tech, so women in leadership, and helping to give platforms and channels to people that are looking to really excel in their careers, namely women, which is why we're going to hear some really interesting stories from these ladies about their journeys. I just have a few, and probably second to that, if you are interested in talking about any of those topics or anything we've touched upon, we'll have some kind of networking time afterwards to talk about the training programs, the work that Sparkline does, connecting you with anybody else here that's in the room from Girls in Tech and the other organisations as well. Just a couple of quick thank yous. Thank you to New Space for the lovely venue that you've given us from New Lab. So they are sponsoring us with the venue and the drink. So please guys help yourself to everything that you can see there. We also have corn, so thanks for the yummy food and the bento. So do help yourself to some dinner while you're here. I'll be introducing one of our partners as well. Helen from Hopscotch is going to have a quick chat after the panel discussion to talk to you about what they do. It's basically another community partner of ours that offers women opportunities to get back into the workplace around career transition. So I'll move without any further ado to the panel. So introduce you to who we have with us today. Elisa is our illustrious leader at Sparkline. Started the business in 2013. So we're going into our 6th year in Sparkline, and we were set up to help businesses flourish, make better business decisions, improve based on making data-driven decisions. So we're actually a digital analytics consulting company. Elisa's passionate and fearless leader, I can vouch for that. And in today's technology world, she's an advocate for really hiring within her own organisation, supporting within the community to advocate for really giving women more opportunities in STEM. Fantastic. We have Madhu. Hi. Who's our head of integration. So she leads one of our very technical teams, one of our more technical teams, and she's been with us for the past few years. She's a rare breed in her field, and it would be really fantastic to hear Madhu's story from transitioning to some of the larger companies that she's worked with before to helping to grow our business in Sparkline. We have Suchanda, who's joined us from Bangkok, Singapore. She's got 19 years experience within global financial institutions, so it's really interesting to hear how your journey's progressed through that time, Suchanda, and globally, so across Asia, UK, and USA as well, through the various different areas that you've worked in. And we have Tasha, who's MD for Girls in Tech. And she's also learning and development specialist, so she's just taken up a recent role as head of people at JNO. So trying to juggle a bit of everything, how I know most of us do. So yeah, very, very interesting to hear your story as well. And Lynette is our moderator. She's passionate about diversity. And again, we're all kind of here for the same sort of cause, and it's really about helping women have that voice and opportunity within our field. So I'll hand you over to the panel and we can hear a little bit more about the ladies' stories. Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you. So maybe we can start a bit by each of you maybe saying a little something about yourselves. Where you come from. We need the mic. I don't think we need the mic, right? Can you ask me, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah? Great. Good. Yell. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. My name's Elitza. I am the founder of Sparkline, which, as Sarah mentioned, is a digital analytics company. I came to Singapore 7 years ago with Google. My husband was at Google, and I also met my husband at Google. So there's a lot of Google in my history. Previously from Australia, and I have 3 children. 12, 8 and 5. I had my son the same year that I started the business.
Wow.
It's an interesting time.
So my name is Tasha and MD of Girls in Tech. My fellow co-MD Haley is also here as well if you're interested. So there's lots of people here who can talk to you about what Girls in Tech do, so I'll leave that for later on. The reason why I wanted to come and do this session today is actually to be able to interact with women from, I think, a different background than what Girls in Tech usually interacts with, right? So we're very interested in talking to women across all sectors. And that's why this is really special for me, because if I can share with you how some parts of my journey as someone who came from non-tech into tech, how that shaped out, then I think that might be helpful for all of us to get to know each other a little better. I think Girls in Tech as well, if I can share, we do want to get more involved with women in the financial services sector, because Chanda will be able to tell you, fintech and technology coming into finance is actually really, really interesting, and we want to be able to support women to be successful in that area as soon as possible, right? Because that's where all the interesting things are. So yeah, I'm really enthusiastic about this. I'll let you introduce yourself. Yes.
I'm Suchanda. I work for Bank of Singapore in the product management group. Moved to Singapore 9 years ago, previously in London with big corporations, as Sarah just mentioned. I have one daughter, she's 5 years old, and yeah, very glad to be here and looking forward to a very meaningful conversation with all of you.
Hi everyone, I'm Madhu. I'm originally from India, so I came to Singapore like about 5 years back. And I came here for my master's actually in NUS. I did a course in enterprise business analytics because I was very fond of analytics. And once I completed that, Sparkline's been my first company here in Singapore, just after my master's. I've been with them for about 4 years now. And I started off as part of the integration team actually, and I kind of have grown there at Sparkline. So it's more like a family, it's more like a family setup for me at this point. And I lead the integration team within Sparkline. And I'm very excited to be here talking to all of you about this topic today.
Great. So this topic today obviously is women in tech. So obviously revolving around females in tech. So I'd like to start off maybe taking you way back. What was it like when you started your career? Maybe Elisa.
I didn't start my career in tech, actually. I was a television actress.
Glamorous. Amazing.
I was a television actress in Australia and always thought that my future would be in that area, which didn't turn out like that. I started a job at Google temping, actually, and I was only supposed to be there 2 days. And I stayed nearly 10 years. So I kind of learnt everything within the tech field from there. And while it doesn't feel like acting on television and analytics have anything to do with one another, they actually have a lot to do with one another, because it's the study of people. And that's what I find really exciting about what we do and how we help companies, which is how can you help companies understand their audiences more, their kind of wants, needs and desires, and that would be something that I would do previously, but I guess in a different way.
Okay. How about Chanda? I mean, you've been working for nearly 20 years.
So I did start in tech. I started with IBM way back in New York and Austin, and I think that was an excellent grounding for me understanding technology, but this is more than 20 years back. From there till now, I slowly moved into finance over the years. But as I moved into finance, technology is becoming closer to our day-to-day business. I think in the past, it was business and technology and two separate verticals in most businesses. Today, we are talking of us being together because technology is business. From a banking perspective, we have salespeople, we are relationship managers who go and sell products to clients. Today we have robo-advisors, we have technology behind to do all of that. So the lines are blurred, business and technology are getting very solidly integrated, and to me, having that foundation in the past, and at that point I thought I was moving away from technology, and so many years later I am back in the middle of it. So it's been a very interesting journey that way.
Cool. What are the conversations, maybe, for any of you, that you realized when you started on a career, like gender balance conversations? I think it's obviously a big topic now. Diversity is a huge topic. How strong were those conversations when you started?
For me, I would say they didn't really exist. And I think now we're seeing obviously a lot more attention drawn to, especially in STEM, women in STEM and diversity. I know from our own, the way that we recruit, especially for Madhu's team, we might get 1 in 200 resumes from women, maybe 1. So I know from my own experience how difficult it is to encourage women in these fields, because we're not even seeing them apply for the roles that they could be very well qualified for. But starting in my career within technology, it wasn't something that was really spoken about. And again, we probably didn't have the ratio of female to male roles, especially within engineering, was very nascent.
I think we still don't.
Yes.
For me, I guess like when I started off, I mean, there was a little bit of this imbalance. Like I started off my career in IBM in India. So we had like about, we were like 3 girls and a team of 18 people. So all the rest were like guys, obviously. And after that is when I decided that I wanted to do my master's. So it was also interesting because at that point in time when I was having this discussion with my parents, there were like a few relatives who kind of went up to my dad and asked him if he really wanted to invest in my master's or if he just wanted to get me married at that point in time.
Wow.
So I mean, I guess I have very broad-minded parents in that sense, because this was really something that they just laughed off. But this does exist. I mean, it's quite embedded in our system and society. And it is quite prevalent, and it's really a paradigm shift that we need mindset-wise for us to kind of come out of this. So yeah.
So I mean, going off that, you started your career in tech in India. So what do you think are the biggest hurdles facing women looking to enter the tech field, especially in Asia? Like given your experience both in India and Singapore.
Sure. So what I think, I mean, I know we always talk about this pipeline pool. Like we always talk about women not really embracing careers in STEM. But I think, I mean, that's essentially what's happening. There's a cause to it. It's more because of these stereotypes that all of us have kind of grown up with. It's so embedded and prevalent in the system, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's quite embedded in your mind as well. So I feel a lot of girls kind of grow up with this insecurity in that sense that they really are not at par with guys, which is bullshit. So I feel it's a lot about that as well in terms of confidence and insecurity kind of stemming from this. So yeah, I think it kind of needs to be addressed at the grassroots level in that sense. So that's one reason. Yeah, that's what I feel.
Would you guys agree? Or is there any more to add? Sasha, maybe?
I mean, in the course of the work that I do with Girls in Tech, we talk a lot about the pipeline problem, right? And a lot of companies like to say that, oh, the problem is the pipeline is not there.
Yeah.
Can you help us find the women? Why do they want to come and join the companies that really want to hire them, right? And to Madhu's point, a lot of women are already there, but they're seen as not being good enough, or they don't have a degree in mathematics, or they don't have the right background for technology, right? I always push back and I challenge the corporates to think about why we have a pipeline problem in the first place, right? Is that we don't go into schools and tell the girls that we are waiting for them on the other end, right? So a lot of the work that I do now is actually calling out corporates on their bullshit, because they tend to come up with 1,001 reasons for why they won't hire a woman, because, oh, she didn't study maths for long enough, or I just feel that she doesn't really have the right combination of technology experience, right? And these are things that we need to call out, because women tend to be generalists for a very good reason, right? And the industry is actually changing to be more open to generalists and specialists. So as the industry changes, the unconscious biases that corporates have towards women also need to change, right? So a lot of the work that I do is actually calling people out on those biases, trying to help them understand that if they want to take advantage of the women who are already in the pipeline, they will have to make certain compromises. They're not really compromises, because the women that inevitably join the workforce and that they accept will be the most amazing rock stars. Like, we are all women, so we know that we will work harder than the men, we will learn faster than the men, we will try harder than the men, right? And we need people to tell us that it's okay to come and join them. So I'm very lucky as well, because I found leaders, both male and female, who when you ask, they will give. right? So when you ask them, hey, can you interview women who maybe are not quite there yet? They're like, yeah, why not, right? And then you'll find that it's actually really surprising when you ask, you will get, right? So we try and open the door, and we get women to actually come in and sit down with the people who will hire them, and then you see things changing. You'll hear from Hopscotch later on, but Sophie from Hopscotch, who works with Helen, and this is an amazing story about how they had corporates who were rejecting women when they looked at their resumes. They had the same women come in and speak to the hiring managers, and the hiring managers like, oh, these women are perfect, we love them, right? But they literally looked at the resume and said no, right? And it's because you're a woman. So there are a lot of things that we need to confront in terms of the pipeline problem. But my two things that I'm doing there, like, look, I go into the schools and I tell the girls that it's okay to do engineering, right? And do STEM. Don't listen to anybody else, just do the STEM. Keep going, learn what you want to learn, what are things you're interested in. These are the fields of study you need to go into. For the women, I think it's all about encouraging. So if you're already there and you're waiting and you're looking for the opportunities, it's about telling the companies to actually pull back the veil and say it's okay to apply for jobs that you are not so qualified for, right? Please come and talk to us. And you'll find that there are lots of recruiters out there who, those in tech are training, recruitment companies are training, the industry is training to actually talk differently to you as well, right? So it's not about, can you actually do the job? It's more about, what have you done, right? And then trying to find those commonalities. So things are moving, definitely. I think the pipeline problem is exaggerated to a certain extent.
Yes.
But to Madhu's point, call out the bullshit, because it's just, sometimes it's just not the things that they're saying, yet it is.
Yeah. Alita and Sujana, you both worked in the West for a long time. Do you see the same problems, or like how is it different, similar?
Do you want to start?
I think it's less of a problem in the West. It is still a problem, but two big corporations that come to my mind, IBM and Citi. I worked for IBM in US, I worked for Citi in London and New York. They, even 10-15 years ago, had very structured programs to bring women into the workforce, and not just bring us in, but groom us throughout the career. So there was a head of diversity, there were champions within the business. And these were not just women, there were men, there were people in senior roles who were committed to groom us and make us grow in the organization. So I think they are at a mature level. It's not there yet, we still have a problem, but way ahead of the game. I've grown in Asia, I've grown up in India as well, but I came back to Asia after 20 years, and I think Asia has a long way to go. We definitely are not as mature, we are not as focused in bringing people in. It's not a capability question, as you were saying, but I don't see formal programs, I don't see the push, I don't see the commitment levels yet to bring us at a level where we should.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, moving into Singapore, even with a company like Google, it was night and day for how prevalent, I guess, non-support of diversity was when I arrived. Even relationships with customers was about bringing your manager into the room to try and have a conversation with your customers, which I'd never really faced previously. Even now, having my own business, people assume it's a tech company, that there's a man somewhere that's going to sign off on the deals that we're doing, because I don't know if I've just got used to it or if it is getting better, but it was a definite night and day transition for me, recognizing my gender as being something that was going to limit my ability to do my job.
Well then, I mean, you're all obviously leaders and managers. So how do you ensure that there's, throughout the ranks, that there's equal opportunities for progression for women and men? Chacha? Since you're in HR.
I'll just give a disclaimer first before I say anything and tell you all that I'm a very different kind of HR person. I don't see my role in technology and hiring in technology as letting the business tell me what to do, right? I go out as an HR person and I tell the business what they need, right? So if they come to me with business objectives and KPIs, and I need to hire someone immediately. You know, like it's always I need to hire someone immediately. I always come back to them and ask them what are the things that you're actually looking to do, right? Like you know, you can't do everything, so you need to pick the things that you want to do, right? So if you want to hire in a diverse way, right? But you also need to meet your business objectives. But you also need to, let's say, spend as little money as possible, right? You can only do really just maybe 2 of the 3. I would argue that you can only do 1 really. But I always challenge what they think needs to be done from a business perspective, right? I work right now in a Singapore founded startup, and all the founders are Singaporean, and so we always grapple day to day with hiring for technology in a market where, to be honest, the Singapore baseline is very low when it comes to capability with technology, the desire to learn, and just how they're set up, right? Like, so do Singaporeans understand technology in the first place? So we always try and look at what are the things that we need to compromise on. They're very hard decisions to make, right? Like I very recently had to look at a Singaporean and a foreigner, and for the role that we wanted, we had to ask ourselves the very difficult question of, do we help a local to gain more experience with us, or do we look at what needs to be done immediately and maybe hire the foreigner instead? In the end, we didn't hire either, and it was because we were compromising our business objectives to do someone a favor, I guess, in giving them a job, right? So you have to make those hard decisions all the time. So I think, so what was the question?
How do you ensure that you get opportunities?
Exactly. So yes, when you get distracted from like how do you ensure equal opportunity because you're already looking at the personal issues, right? Sometimes you have to step away as a team and understand how do you create equal opportunity, right? If you're already asking the right questions, like are we trying to do business objectives? Are we trying to give someone an opportunity? Or are we trying to make ourselves look good? You will ultimately find the right thing to do. But at the same time, we also have high-level priorities, right? I go to the founders and I say, how many roles do you want to hire for by the end of the year? How many of these should be women? Do we actually want to hire women for these roles, for example, right? Being someone who has a bias myself, I will always look at all the CVs that come in and be like, not enough women, right? And if I feel like not enough women have come in, I might hold the CV drop and say, we're not going to review until I'm happy with the number that I see, right? Or where is the woman here? If you're bringing someone to the next round, where's the woman? Right? Or where's the Singaporean? Where have you looked at foreign talent, right? People will come up with all kinds of excuses. So the challenge will be, look, be very realistic about it, right? What is the thing that you're willing to compromise on? I think all of us have things that we'll compromise on as well, right? We might take a pay cut to get the job that we really want. We all have companies that we would say yes to without hesitation. There are also jobs that we really want to do because we feel that it's the next step in our career. You also need to reconcile that. As someone who works for a company and has decision-making power, I also try to be very clear on what I'm asking you to do when you join, right? So when I tell you, look, this is going to be a very brutal environment if you are a woman, or this is going to be really hard for you if you're a man who's used to getting your own way, I need you to understand that I'm telling you the truth. And when we both agree, then we can really work together well. My current company policy also as well is that we hire fast, fire fast. If it doesn't work out, okay, let's just shake hands and we'll be on our way, right? So really trying to understand the challenges is all about understanding yourself and what you're willing to do the job, right? We all come in as fully formed people. So I don't take that for granted at all. And I think given the market that we're all in as well, right? We all have decisions to make. The moment you compromise, it gets very, very hard to do hiring in a way that is very equal opportunity.
Do you guys agree? Maybe different perspective from big company? Suchanda?
I definitely, I mean, the problem is there. If there is a job, obviously the number of male candidates outnumber the women irrespective of the role. But personally, I do make an effort to meet the women. That's because diversity is important to me, not just because they're women, but I think there is value in bringing a fresh perspective. We bring different ideas. I don't want a team of 10 men who are giving me similar thoughts, similar ideas for bringing solutions to the business. So I do that proactively. And one thing I compromise on is, have they done it in the past? But what I look for is potential and ability and the right attitude. Because to be honest, none of the jobs are rocket science. With the right attitude, you can learn to do it. So giving someone who's willing to go the extra mile, who brings fresh perspective, adds value to the business, I do try to make a proactive effort, but that's just me. I cannot speak of the wider community. Within my influence, I do it. I definitely do it.
Yeah, I have to agree. So I work at Nugget, and our head of engineering, he mentioned to me last that he always sees the biggest success when it's a balanced group of men and women, because and it was really interesting because he didn't talk about just the biases and all, and there is biases, but he said for the product, depending on who you're selling to, like men and women contribute differently to the biasness of the product, so it then creates a balanced product, which I thought was interesting. Just thought I'd share that too. So maybe Lisa, obviously you own your own company, you founded a company. What have you done, maybe some examples of stuff that you've done to promote diversity in your team?
Well, I think Madhu could speak to this a little bit. I mean, we're a small business, so it's not. We try and do what we can, I think. So each year, and we've just done it for International Women's Day, we always have TGIF every Friday, where usually everybody plays cards. But for that particular Friday, I normally take the girls out to lunch, and we discuss some of the things and the topics. And then for that TGIF, we come together with the guys that are there, talk about what we've discussed, and then we actually make some firm decisions about what we're going to do from each of the teams that year, and they vote on the ones that people like the most, and we pick 3, and that goes up on the wall for the year, and they're things that we've all committed to and come together with. But it's also about making sure that just as much as the women are there, that the guys are on board and included. So we really have quite a good discussion about what do the guys actually think? Do you still think it's important? Do you think that we're just having a day out? Just so that you actually get commitment from everybody to make some firm commitments. So even within hiring, one of the things was, can you take their name off the application when you're looking at resumes and CVs? That was one thing that we felt could be useful for us to do, so that when Sarah, who does our initial round of hiring, is actually looking at CVs, and there's nothing to do with actually gender on any of the CVs. Again, they're really small things, but they're things that as a small business, can we actually be involved and commit? We give our office space free to women-centered education programs. So if guys like Girls in Tech want to use our space to train, we have a training space upstairs that we just give for free, so that people can come and learn within that environment. And as much as possible, we try to align ourselves with groups like yourselves so that we can participate in some way and help try and, I guess, bring awareness to what is the opportunity for women in these fields, but what's also the opportunity for guys to be involved. So I think one of the, I can't remember the acronym we used, he for she, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, good, I got that right. Was that we'd actually have guys from our team participate at some of the women-led events that we're going to be doing, as their commitment to also want to change things, and also for them to be able to see that we're making a contribution. So again, small things, but things that a small business can be a part of and do.
Do you have anything to add?
Okay, but it's very true. We do have all of these initiatives that we try out. We are a small team, we're very small, but we do make an effort despite being a small team. The He for She program, is we actually whiteboard everything. We kind of, it's a group discussion, and as Aliza rightly mentioned, it's really not about like girls just looking at women in tech. It's about the guys being equally involved in this movement as well. Because if you really want to bring a change, it should come from everyone. So it's not a win or lose situation here. It's win-win for everyone at the end of the day. So we kind of definitely get involved in such initiatives. We've had a lot of workshops upstairs as well, like in the room that Aliza was mentioning. Like we have programming workshops conducted by different groups. So and Aliza I think mentioned previously as well that we barely get CVs, especially for our team. We barely get CVs of girls. We mostly have guys applying, but the beautiful thing about our team at this point, my team specifically, is that we are 3 girls and 3 boys. So we still make that much of an effort to actually make sure that we have a lot of girls in our ecosystem as well. And a lot of it is not just about just bringing them on board and just letting them be. I think we also have a really strong mentoring program. We kind of make that effort. I think everyone does that amongst all teams as well, to kind of spend time with your team members, and it's like just pairing people up to make sure that you can just walk someone through your insecurities and kind of understand how to have difficult conversations with people and stuff. So I think we're very invested in that cause from our side.
Cool. right, so I'm going to take it back a little bit, and I wanted to talk about just women leaders, right? So, if you could share with everybody, what qualities that you see in a strong female leader that you admire, maybe in a mentor or someone you would really admire, what would they be? Anybody? Tasha?
So I've just been for the last 4 days been in a leadership program that was run by the National Youth Council, and something that happened today, because it was the last day that we were all together, right? We had all the women in the group coming up to each other and saying, "I love what you said about this and that," and like, "Oh, you were so eloquent when you said this and that," right? And the really wonderful thing I found was that we kept encouraging each other, and every time someone said something that was self-deprecating, like, "Oh, I could have said that better," or "Oh, you described this issue that was troubling us so much better than I did." We gave each other opportunities to speak up, right? So we were constantly like pointing to another person saying, "Hey, can you share what you said about this earlier?" Because when we were in the group, you couldn't really describe it, but when we were together on our own, you really could, right? And encouraging each other, being able to be supportive. This is a group of like 30 youth leaders who are all involved in very different things across, all sectors. And the women, of course, we are all very different. We come from diverse backgrounds, but we all wanted to do one thing, which was we wanted to support each other and give each other confidence to say the things that really mattered, right? So when there's something that's so much bigger than yourself, you all need to help each other to move forward. I really like women who are inspired, but also inspired to speak up as well, right? So when you are emboldened by others and you do something about it, that makes me really, really happy. I met someone who was from MUIS, which is the Islamic Council in Singapore, and she had the same remarks in the beginning. She's like, "Oh, Tasha, you speak so well, and you do so many great things. I don't even know what technology is, but I really admire what you're doing." By today, the day 4 of the program, she was actually able to articulate how grateful she was to be around people from the private sector, from technology, to learn so much more. And she's like, "I'm really looking forward to learning even more from all of you, because we'll all stay in touch." I think that's really powerful, right? Because if you're able to, in the short span of time, give each other the strength to speak up, that's really key. So a lot of the work that I do sometimes, I actually look at uplifting other people. Like I brought Lynette on board to Girls in Tech because I really wanted her to be able to get the same experiences that I did. So when you bring others along, that's another leadership quality that I really admire, right? It's not just about you. You always see how you can bring a +1 into the picture as well. It's like, hey, can I bring my friend? Can I bring somebody that I work with? And that's really a quality of a leader, right? They're not in it for themselves. They want to bring other people along as well.
For me, I guess I kind of have learned this from Lisa as well. I mean, she's my first female boss, and I've kind of learned this from her. A lot of it is about being really immune to naysayers. Don't bother about people who think you cannot do something, who think you can't establish yourself somewhere, who think you can't go a certain way because of the fact that you're a girl. Just don't really bother about anyone. Just be immune to that and just follow your dreams. You'll be fine.
I love that. That's great.
To me, I go back to my IBM days, and the lady who used to head the whole tech division in IBM, she still comes to mind as one of the best women leaders. And the qualities I think of, absolutely, as both of you said, speak up, don't be shy, because for all you know, the others in the room also know nothing and are just talking the way that you know. Speaking up, I think, is a key quality, because if you don't speak, you don't get. As a leader, I think you've got to be smart, in the sense, if you don't know, surround yourself with people who know and get it out from them, and that's part of also bringing people together, them up. But the most important thing I think I see in women leaders is empathy for people. And that to me brings a lot more cohesive team spirit and leads to better results. That's definitely worked for me. I have seen my mentors and my bosses who are women also do that. I don't see, some men of course do it, but I think we are better than them in doing that. So that definitely helps.
Empathy is great. That's a really good trait to have. Alisa, I know you.
Yeah,
Some great advice.
Yeah, apparently so, which is great. I've been fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of very strong females, maybe leaders or non-leaders, that I've learned a lot from and that I've seen grow in their careers. And I agree with all the traits that have been mentioned. A couple that probably are very relevant for me is integrity, and having to make hard choices a lot of the time, but doing it because it's the right thing to do, as opposed to having any bias in any way. I think that's really important, because now from my own experience, being a female leader, you do get exposed to a lot, and having to make the right decision can sometimes be very, very tricky. So I think integrity is really key for me. And the other one is, and part of speaking up, I suppose, is just ways of communication. So actually being able to invest in your teams and be able to communicate them in different ways, I see as something that's always an enormous strength, and probably leads into the empathy discussion as well. How can you have a potentially difficult conversation with somebody, but how can you position it in a way that makes them feel as though they might be empowered by it, or that they can learn from it, or that it's something that they can progress from, as opposed to something that's negative and makes people not feel very good about themselves or doing that. And those different nuances in communication and being able to recognize that, I think, is a really important strength.
Great. Just opening it out to the audience now. Does anybody have any questions for our fab panel?
I think given that there's not that many people in the room, we need to have a conversation, so please feel free to jump in and just ask us anything. I
have an odd question. So, we just moved here and my husband's an engineer, and I was really excited from going to a function of his company. I met some women in there who 3 of them were schedulers, but then after chatting with them I learned that they were actually engineers, same type as him, on the same path. And so I was trying to get him really excited. I said, oh, you've been looking to mentor. I've been pushing him to try and mentor. So these are the perfect people, and like, they're going to work so hard for you. No, because especially in his industry, he said there's never been any women, ever. So Singapore was really exciting for me, because I was like, wow, there's actually women now in your industry, you have no excuse. So what would you, like, help me out? I want to give him, I want him
Bring him here.
It's like, where is
what
he?
would you, like, maybe you can answer that, because you're in HR and you're like, I don't know, what can I do to get him excited about, I want him to mentor them, and I don't know what to.
I think what might be useful, and there are lots of groups that do this, so there's no shortage of opportunities, right? Is to get him involved with a group that does this kind of mentorship, right? So he may not be lucky enough to be in a company that has a program already, but in Singapore, fortunately, there are lots of groups, not just girls in tech. I think we're not doing mentorship this year, but she says they're actually looking for mentors for women in digital space. And if you go out there, if you don't have it in your company, you can definitely go out there and you can ask people for the opportunities to mentor, right? And same for the women in this company as well, right? Like, have they started looking for mentors? Do they know?
Sorry.
Have they started looking for mentors? Do they know like what kind of mentorship they want, right? So the thing that you need to avoid is assuming that women want to be mentored or that people want to be mentors, right? So first you must understand what the purpose is. I would ask your husband, like, what do you want to get out of mentoring? Because at the end of the day, a mentor needs to be selfish and be, I want to help X do X, right? Once the mentor has that, the mentor can go out into any mentorship program and say, I want to do X, right? And I'm looking for people like this, right? Then people can come to them and say, oh, I identify with the thing that you're trying to solve for, or I am the person that you're looking to mentor, let's work together, right? So much of it is chemistry. So I would argue that maybe your husband is not the right mentor for these women. Maybe these women already have mentors, we don't know. There needs to be a process of basically discovery, right? But being in the same company is actually really positive, right? Where if he engages them in conversation, he can actually cut through all of this and say, yeah, look, let me help all 3 of you out with maybe, having the right conversations in the company. The moment he volunteers to do that, instead of being a mentor, he becomes a sponsor, which is even more important in a woman's life, right? When you have a man who's already in a position that the women want to be in, there's so much that the man can do to help in the course of day-to-day. It doesn't even have to be mentorship, right? When you have a sponsor in the workplace who, when he can't do something, he volunteers a colleague instead, that's so valuable to women. I cannot tell you how many times when a man has said my name when I'm not in the room. And that's really allowed other people to say, oh yeah, we never really thought of talking to her about this, like why don't we do that, right? it may or may not turn into an opportunity, but that's really how you need to look at it. So I would say do the discovery process first. Find out what you all need from each other, and then whether that's in the company or outside of the company, then that's really a way to move forward, right? And I think it's fantastic that you met these women, through a function at his company, because obviously means that there's lots of interaction already. Keep trying to do that. You'll find that in Singapore, there's no shortage of people who want to help and who want to be helped, I think.
Well, I did ask them, maybe one of them mentored, but I was thinking it was more getting him excited. I never thought to ask him what he would want out of it. So
there might be something he really wants to do and just doesn't know.
Yeah.
Can I add to that? Because I was part of a program last year. It's a Singapore-wide, actually industry independent mentoring program. And I think what's great about it, because if you speak to the mentors there, and there are a lot of women, but there are also men in it, that while it seems like the mentees are the ones that are supposed to get something out of it, I think the mentors perhaps were even more grateful and learned more from it than the mentees did. I think it was definitely a win-win situation. So I think it could be about making him aware, as you say, what's in it for him, and that can be him helping someone, but also I think being a mentor is not something that you just wake up and you are. And the great thing about being part of a program like this is you work with mentor coaches who can teach you what are the right skill sets and what are the right ways of having these conversations, which again will benefit both sides. So I think maybe that could be something that you could raise for him if he's interested in doing it. It's a great skill set for him to learn, and that ensures that he is actually a good mentor to the woman that he's working with.
Yeah, we did a mentorship program with Girls in Tech last year, and some of the feedback, we sent out feedback after, and some of the mentors had come back and said they learned a lot about maybe a different generation, or different how the mindset, what the younger team thinks, like how they think, because it is different from the way you grew up, the way you do things, and that's a lot of the feedback came back saying, oh, I love it, I learned so much about this doing by being a mentor, so he can actually even improve his skills.
Who were more enthusiastic, the mentors or the mentees?
They were both.
Okay.
By the end, it was just like, well, because even when I started, I was like, what did the mentors get out of it?
Yeah.
And then after that, you realize the more they talk about it, and then, I really learned so much about a different maybe career, that someone else is a different path, or something else. So you could really learn quite a bit. Anything to add, ladies?
I just think from a team perspective, if there are no women in the team, then it's that conversation around differing of opinion, right? That perspective. So if you're leading a team or trying to elevate a team in some way by investing in allowing these women the seat at the table, I suppose, can also give a differing of thoughts, differing of creative ideas, and just giving that diversity to the team, which usually helps elevate the entire performance of teams. So if it's a performance-based conversation, it's to say, how can I get these ladies more involved? I think even you saying that the way they described their role wasn't the same as how your husband describes his role. I see this a lot in self-assessments, when I have our team do self-assessments. By and large, the girls in our teams, and I've told this to the girls in our teams, under-qualify themselves for their skills. And the guys, sorry, my Spark guys, over-inflate a lot of times their capabilities in certain areas. And I see it all the time. Every time I get self-assessments and I think, well, why have you scored yourself so low?
That's universal.
Yeah,
but I see it every time it happens, and it doesn't matter the people that do it. It's the process of the girls in the room thinking, I've always got to do more. The guys in the room going, I'm knocking it out of the park, right? So, and that's not across the board for everything, but I see it quite often. So it's also an opportunity for your husband to say, these ladies might not have had the right attention previously to really reach their full capacity and potential for me and my team. How can I spend some time with them, either as a sponsor or a mentor, to really grow that confidence so that when they are describing their roles, it's the same as how the guys are describing their roles, and that they're given that opportunity to be involved, and how that could elevate the performance of the team just because of that diversity in the room.
I think it's great because he does complain about no one really speaking up during the meetings.
Yes.
So if I suggest to him, why don't you just invite one of those schedulers who are, in there? Because I've worked with a lot of men in IT, we all do. And it's true what you said, Tasha, about us actually how do you say, saying, oh, you did a great job on that, or that was good about that. I was like the only voice doing that for so long. So it's nice to hear that I'm not the only one. I just always thought it was really overly enthusiastic compared to men.
Awesome. Do anybody else have anything?
Okay, can you please share some experience for how you start your own business? And can you please share some like advice to the women who want to start their own business?
I've made lots of mistakes, but that's part of the process, and I think that that's probably a key trait if you want to start your own business, is be comfortable with failing fast, because especially you're doing it for the first time, you are going to make a lot of mistakes, and not to say that's a bad thing, because you learn a lot from doing that. I think the other one is agility. So can you see if you're going down a particular path that wasn't what you thought it was, and can you pivot quickly to be able to be much more agile in your thinking? I think that's a really key thing as well. I think being comfortable with knowing that you can't do everything yourself. I struggle with this quite a lot, but you're one person, you can't physically do everything. And also you might not be the best person to do that, so how you can work with people to get their support, but also giving them opportunities in the ways that can also help the business to grow, but that you're picking the best person to help you do that, and that's often not yourself, it's often other people. I think that's really key as well. I have had a lot of support to get the business, and so I owe lots of favors to friends and family and sometimes strangers that have given me perspectives and opinion. I think your network, you really need to leverage a network, because it does take a village. I say to my team often, there are a lot of people behind me that don't come here every day that are helping me to solve problems. I've got lawyers that work at home that are looking at legal documentation for me. I've got accountants that are outside of the office. So it really does take a network, and I've been very lucky and also very grateful that I have people that will sit with me for an exchange of a cup of coffee and give me a perspective or a point of view, and that's really been integral for me to be able to have the business.
I mean, I work with a lot of startups, and I work with a lot of tech teams in large companies, and they behave like startups as well, right? So I'm definitely going to double check on what a lot of teams do very well, and what a lot of startup founders do very well, is that they hire very smart people, but they don't do the other 50%, which is they let the smart people do their jobs, right? Because you are so protective of your baby, of what you think that your business needs to be, that you frustrate the smart people by not letting them do the things that they want to do. So you really have to be willing to be a bit flexible about what your startup needs to look like, right? And trust that you've made the right decision to hire, because these people will want the best thing for you, because it's the best thing for them as well. And it's really important to do that. Like even, in the companies that I'm in right now, even managing girls in tech, I have to remind myself that, hey, this is not going to be done as quickly as I would like. It is not even going to be done to the degree that I want. So let's say like it's only going to be 60% complete instead of 100% complete. But the 100% complete is my perspective of it, right? So I have to be okay with the 50%, because does it fulfill what needs to be done at the end of the day? Yes. Right? So you need to trust that other people will do it the way it needs to be done. It's not how you would like it to be done. And that's really important for female leaders as well, because you get married to the vision, you work until I hear a lot of 996 this last couple of weeks, work 996, get it done, make it perfect, you're a woman, you need to make it really beautiful, and then everyone will think that you're amazing. No such thing, right? You can be as lazy as anybody else, and people are still going to think you're going to do an amazing job, right? So you need to trust that as a business owner, as a startup founder, that your business is going to be bigger than just you, right? So have faith in what you set up, because obviously you're going to make some really tough decisions, but they're also going to be really good ones as well. Yeah, I can see that you're very driven. So
Are you planning to set up your own company?
Yeah, maybe one day.
One day, okay.
Yeah, but still building, right? So start thinking about it now,
Yeah,
even in the
just
companies that you're in.
But I think thank you for the advice, and very appreciate that. But I have another question, which is the most important part is you need to find a team, right? So how can you make sure you find the correct person? Like, do you have a co-founder? Like, how you found your team in the first place?
I did have a co-founder, and it was an interesting process. And also finding your initial people, especially because of the industry that we're in. I think Sarah mentioned at the beginning, we've done a lot in the education space. We're not an education provider, but we just naturally have to do that a lot because the talent is not exactly where we want it to be. We always have to retrain or reskill certain things, and also when we're working with big businesses, they're all looking for the same pool of talent. So I'm competing with Google for the same talent that Google can pay 3 times the salary, and they get lunch and dinner every day, and all of that. So it is a really difficult topic. I think having somebody that you run a business with can be good and bad. It can be good because again you get that diversity of opinion. It can be bad when you can't get the same level of performance that you're wanting to get, and you start to not realize that person isn't as committed as you are to the cause. So I think that's a disappointment. But I hear people that had started businesses themselves all the time, and they always say, I wish I just had somebody to ask, do you think we're doing the right thing? So I don't think there's one model to follow. I think it's kind of either you've got people that you want to join forces with and work with, or you've got an idea that you want to execute yourself. You definitely need people. I can't do anything without my team. My team's amazing, and they come to work every day. And I say to Sarah, sometimes I walk upstairs and the lift's open. I say, oh good, everyone's here. Success, we're all up and running, So it depends what type of business you have. There are people that I know that have run their own business that do it at home, and they didn't grow it, they've just had it because they're passionate about what they do. They make some money from it, but they're not trying to grow an empire. So it's also, you find out that people have different objectives for having their own business as well. And I've had to come to realize that, which is there are people that like to do certain things, which is why they create businesses. There are people that are trying to grow an industry or to try and change things. That's a different objective. So it's really about understanding what you want it to be. You might not know today, but you really do start to figure that out as you go along, which is what kind of business owner do I want to be? What kind of business do I want? And then what are all the things that I need to think about that are going to make that happen? And some of that might be people, some of that might be software, some of that might be an office space. The easy part is registering your company. That's the easy part. That's just filling out a form. But it is then starting to think of all those different components. And sometimes you have situations like we do where, when it comes to talent, it's something that I wouldn't have foreseen, that you are competing with every other large business out there. So how do you have to make your company more agile to make sure that we can still deliver what we want, but that we're not constantly losing out talent to large organizations because they're able to provide a bigger paycheck, for example. So you don't realize those problems until you walk into them, which is why I said it's good to be agile and to be able to pivot, and also to creatively thinking about how to solve a problem. And that's probably the fun part, is that nothing's off the table. And I think that's probably to Madhu's point earlier about, you're kind of empowered to make decisions, because actually you can make decisions standing on the side of a road having a conversation with somebody, and then that becomes a decision. So as a small business, while you can't compete with big businesses in a lot of ways, you can in terms of agility and to be able to make fast decisions and move a lot quicker, because you don't have a lot of the politics, bureaucracy in the way that you would if you're in a traditional company. So pros and cons to both, but I think it's keeping an open mind is important, and leveraging the people around you to help is really key.
I was going to say something a bit similar, which is that the very strange thing about starting your own business is that you tend to look at the things that people are frustrated about, and you try and solve a problem, right? Finding startup co-founders or team members is sort of the same thing. You look for individuals who are frustrated by how things are currently being done, and you have a conversation with them, right? So I end up in my current job because I was going around all of the startup companies, and I won't bother you with how many I went to, but large tech companies. I went to Carousel, I went to all of the startups. I was like, hey, I really want to work with you and help you build up your people function, right? And I was at the point in my career where I was happy to do anything they wanted me to do, as long as I could prove that I could help a team to perform, right? And for one reason or another, it didn't work out. Went through the interview, they decided it wasn't going to happen. And then I met a guy who said that, hey, I might have an HR job for you. Do you want to talk to the people, right? And then we had a conversation. I had multiple conversations with all 4 founders of the company about what are the things that really bother you about HR, right? And then I would turn it around and say, what are the things that bother you about your business right now? What are you trying to change? Who are you trying to hire, right? What are your challenges? And when you look at the frustrations, you're like, hey, I think there's actually a bunch of things that we can help each other to do, right? So when you are both frustrated by different things, if you can find something to rally around, which is the product, right, then you can really build a team that's really nice. So maybe it's just my personality, but I do like people who are quite frustrated, who they're frustrated, also sometimes really lazy because they want to solve problems quickly. But they're also willing to help others, right? So
it's fun. It's part of the motivation.
Exactly. So it's a strange thing, but look for people who are frustrated, find out what they care about, and then try and build a business around that if you've already got an idea. I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, there are now programs, and these are global, but they're also just in Singapore, is with people that are either they have a really good idea, maybe something that they're frustrated about, or people that are just like, I actually want to set up my own company, I want to do a startup, but I don't really have an idea. And what they do is they go through quite an extensive program for a period of time where they actually match up potential co-founders who then go through a very agile process of figuring out, is it a match? Do they have the same vision? Are they complementary but aligned as well? And out of that, I mean, I'm sure the success rate isn't 80%, even maybe 50% or 40%, because it won't always work out. But there are definitely, I'm currently working with a startup company that has come out of that, and they didn't know each other beforehand, and they're an amazing combination. But I also heard of one that recently they broke up. It's like a relationship.
Yeah.
But so they're good programs that can help you. But I'm a founder myself, and a lot of people ask me, wow, you're doing that all on your own? Isn't it difficult? And I think sometimes it is. Sometimes I do want to just have someone tell me that I'm doing the right thing. But what I'm also finding is that there's so many helpful people that I'm surrounded by that I actually don't need a co-founder. I have 5 different co-founders behind me, all with different skill sets that can help me out at different points in time over coffee. And that actually I take away so many amazing ideas, and some of them I apply and some of them I just throw out of the window. But at least you can make that decision yourself on your own.
I think we have a question in the back.
Yeah, that's right. How do you get people to invest or get capital to start up your own company?
Oh, we're completely self-funded.
Same.
So I deliberately, for better or worse, didn't go down that route. I say for worse because you do it the hard ways. But to me, I didn't feel like time would be well spent pitching. I wanted to build, I want to spend time building, not pitching, if that makes sense. So we had made the decision to start the business, and we had customers from day one. And we're a completely self-funded business.
So you actually kind of had your potential customers in place before you actually started the company, right?
No. But it's the kindness of strangers. We were given free office space at an agency for a number of months, which obviously helps with overheads so that you don't have to pay for space, or you borrow Wi-Fi from Starbucks. Probably owe them something. So there's sort of creative ways that you can begin without having to make a lot of investment. I mean, your time is an investment too, right? That has a cost to it, for sure. But for us, and also there's a network. So coming out of Google, obviously I had networks of potential customers. So it's not like I really had to door knock or anything like that. But it's just making sure that those relationships with people that you want to work with work for everybody, and that can take a little bit of time to figure out. But I know a lot of companies that have gone down the funding route, and certainly in Singapore, it seems, especially for the tech type companies, there's quite a lot of different funds that you can go and approach and look for that are more than happy to give kind of seed funding. My husband has his own startup, and they've just gone through another round of Series A that they're based out of the US. So, but in Singapore, I know that happens a lot. And there's also independent companies that can help you get the pitch together. to put for VCs so that you're positioning yourself and your business in the right way. There's a lot of companies that help with that. So if you're interested in doing that, there are independents that help kind of prepare you for that process. Make sure that you've got your pitch really tight and ready. And there's also some angel investors that just give their time, I know, in volunteer programs to be able to say, for this type of idea or this type of business, because different investors like to invest in different things. So there's different pools of kind of money for different topics. There is a site that you can look up called Map of the Money, and it shows where all the investors are in Singapore and the types of companies that they're interested in. And that helps you to give an idea of, if you have a certain idea, what are the type of VCs I would need to go to reach out to. Because again, you might have the best idea in the world, but if they're looking for something specific, then it's probably not worth having that conversation if it's something different to what you're looking for. And they'll often be very transparent about, we are interested in investing in these types of companies or other types of companies. Is that helpful?
Do you want to say something? Talk crazy. No?
I think I was going to say Map of the Money.
Yeah.
Very good place to.
I learned something new.
Yeah. Cool. So
Rachel?
Others. Yeah, I just have one last question.
Sure.
I wanted to, I'm Rachel from Spotlight, so I'm Rachel from Spotlight, and I wanted to ask everyone on the panel actually, what was the process you took to build your personal brand? Like, what was the process of self-discovery you took, and what kind of resources you leveraged to help you discover like your brand and continue to build it, essentially.
Mother, maybe.
For me, I'm still discovering my brand. To be very honest, I don't have it all figured out or anything. I don't have a 10, 20 and a 50-year-old plan, and I really don't, I'm just figuring things out. But I mean, to answer your question, Rachel, maybe you kind of use the resources you have around you. Even personally and professionally, you would anyways have someone that you consider a mentor and a coach. You kind of go back to them when you have questions about your career, questions about how you're growing, questions about where you want to grow towards, what kind of steps you should be taking in growing towards that direction. So it's kind of, starting off from there. This whole having this thought clarity is something that I feel it's very iterative. It's not something that you kind of know up front. It changes as you change as a person too. So I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's like embracing your individuality ultimately, because that's something that will make you stand out irrespective of wherever you are, basically. So I mean, just like Aliza said before as well, just make sure that you're agile, just make sure that you're able to pivot and kind of grow accordingly. I don't know if I've answered your question, but this is the place that I'm in today.
Yeah, same for me. I actually didn't build a personal brand with a strategy. It just happened, but I think integrity and demonstrating the right behavior definitely helps to build a brand. If there is a problem and you run away from it, or you make a mistake, you don't own up to it, these things can derail your brand. But otherwise, I think I moved along from one role to another, pretty much followed the same basic traits that I have always done in my life, learn and grow and do the right thing, and I think the brand just happens.
I think it's definitely, first of all, self-discovery, right? So I didn't start out in technology, I kind of stumbled into it through HR, and I was very lucky because I had people who gave me the right opportunities to be successful. When I felt that I was flying on my own and I didn't have anyone to help me, I started to ask myself, what are the things that I really like and I'm excited by? And those are the things that matter to me today. So that turned into my brand, which is technology, diversity and inclusion, getting women into tech, right? And so people come to me and they ask me about doing all of these things. Your personal attributes add into that as well. So if you care about these things and you can speak about them to some level of eloquence, as I've been reminded today, then that's something that should be a part of your personal brand. And it can be as many things as you like. My personal brand is actually changing as we speak, because I'm starting to see people coming to me and saying, hey, you need to start doing more international relations with the work that you're doing, right? So people very nicely come to me and say, hey, you need to start traveling in Asia and start talking about women in tech, because there's not enough people doing that. And I'm like, I don't really want to do it, but then you start to think about, okay, is it part of my personal brand? And it actually becomes something that spurs you to pursue something different and give a different facet to your personal brand. So think of it as constantly changing and iterative, right? And once you reach a certain point where you're happy and you're honest with yourself about what your personal brand is, sometimes it may be something that you don't like about yourself, like the fact that sometimes I say very strange and gutsy things or very weird things that women don't like to say. Then it can turn around and give you opportunities as well. So it's very modular. You can try something out, take it out, especially when you're just starting out in your career or you're changing careers. That's like the best time to work on your personal brand.
Yeah, I agree with all of those. I think I'm still evolving my personal brand. Might be the oldest person here. But my brand changed a lot because of the types of jobs that I have had, and obviously coming from a high-profile career in television and then walking into the doors of Google, I struggled with that for a long time, and I used to tell people, don't tell anybody else in that TV show, because I felt like it would ruin my credibility, and I was trying to be a professional adult that worked for Google. So nobody tell anybody anything about the fact that I was on television, and I used to really get very upset about it. But it's that over time, as you grow in your career and you get exposed to experiences, it's really about understanding the experiences that motivate you. So I had a bunch of different careers at Google, not because anyone steered me in that direction, just because I put my hand up for things that I didn't know and thought, okay, well, I'll try that, see what happens. And I was lucky that I could have those opportunities to do that, but don't shy away from things just because they're difficult or you don't know how to do them, or you're not sure if you're going to be good at it, because at the end of the day, a lot of the enthusiasm that comes from being brave enough to put your hand up and try things really starts to feed into what your brand's going to look like, and it will be a tapestry of all your experiences, some that you'll be forced into sometimes, and you'll think, oh, I didn't really think that was something that I was good at, but here I am. Or it'll be things that you felt were going to come up, and so some things will be a surprise, some things won't, but I think allow yourself to have that tapestry of brand, because if there's something that I learnt over time, that the idea that I could put myself forward as being the professional Google person, actually I was far more successful as admitting and being able to kind of look at my history as being very diverse, and to kind of, I guess, lean into that as opposed to try and formulate a package of a professional person that I felt like I had to be. And it also becomes a lot easier then to talk about what you've learned and what you're good at and what you're not, because you're quite comfortable with it yourself. You can't be good at everything, it's just impossible. So I think it's just allow yourself, you're at the beginning of your career, Rachel, allow yourself to kind of put your hand up for lots of opportunities, and then you start to carve out what you feel like is a natural fit for you based on what motivates you and what kind of you like to do.
Thanks so much. So I really like how there's this theme of iteration and change, but like Sujata said, be consistent, show up for the job, no matter what you do, and someday you'll get somewhere where it makes sense.
Yeah, you need to show up, obviously.
Thank you. That's a great segue to my last question. So just for to end this, if you guys could give us a piece of advice. So if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice that would maybe help you either start out in your tech career or help you move up the ranks, what would it be?
I think maybe two things. Don't take yourself too seriously, and kind of allow people to see your personality, because it's part of your pitch.
For me, I guess it would be, so this is something which comes from a very personal place, and also from what I've seen within the team as well. It's about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Sometimes, when you have that queasy feeling in your stomach and you have butterflies all over you and you're really worried about something or nervous about something, maybe it's for something really big. So you just go all out and then kind of embrace it, push boundaries. And the other one would be what Aliza said as well, just be yourself, embrace your individuality. I think that's something that will carry you forward, take you places.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to be authentic, who you are, what you stand for. And for me, I think if I go back, maybe I could have spoken up a lot more for new opportunities that I wanted to do, but I wasn't sure I should have done it. I've done it along the way, but maybe I could have done 3-4 things even more, which I probably didn't. So definitely, I think raise your hand and do it.
Yeah. I think for me it's about I would have told myself to ask for more things, because I think now I really take advantage of asking for the things that I want, and being able to go into a room and say, hey, can I just join in and ask questions if it's okay, right? When I was younger, I didn't do that. I didn't want to go into the room because I felt that I wasn't supposed to be there, right? But wanting to be invited and inviting yourself are two very different things. And I wish I had told my younger self would have invited himself into the room more, because nowadays I'm completely shameless and just like, hey, can I join the conversation? And you end up learning, and you end up being able to ask for even more, and it's so wonderful to be able to do that now. And I think my younger self was a little bit sad, because constantly feeling left out and feeling isolated is something that women will continue to face. So the sooner you start asking for small things, that you'll find that they slowly grow and they get bigger and bigger, and you'll be able to learn so much more from so many more people if you actually ask.
Great, thank you. I think the panel will still be around for a little while after.
I think we just wanted to hear from Helen actually.
Oh, sure.
From HubSpot, who's joined us, not as part of the panel, but just to give us a bit of another perspective from a very interesting organisation. Do you just want to kind of introduce
definitely. I thought do you want to come up? You can have a seat actually.
Is that storage table?
It's too short.
Just kind of tell us a bit about HubSpot, because we've kind of connected through it. I think we're just having a bit of an open conversation now.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me here, and it was great to hear from everybody on the panel their perspectives. So I'm Helen. I founded a company called Hopscotch 3 years ago now. We began in Dubai. And really it started from my own personal experience. So Hopscotch is a women's careers platform. We work across all industries, and we now have around 80,000 in our community. We launched here in Singapore in the region just last November, so we're relatively new here. And really Hopscotch began because I have 3 children, so they're very young. They're 4 and under, so 4, 2 and 3 months. And when I had my first baby, I realised very quickly that actually there were very few opportunities for women to get back into the workforce. So not just for me personally, but for my friends and for the women that I met at that particular time who were having kids and who had older kids as well. Their careers were basically over and they'd given up, and they decided that there was just no opportunity to get back. There was no way for them to enter the workforce. Their careers were, might have been 10, 15 years behind them, and, effectively game over for them. And I felt that was incredibly frustrating, incredibly sad actually for them. And from a professional perspective, I was head of department for a big advertising agency. I knew that we needed people on a kind of part-time, short-term basis, on a contract basis, on flexible hours. And there was nowhere for us to find them. It was a case of kind of shouting out in the office, do you know somebody who can do a couple of days a week? Do you know someone who can work on this project? My husband at the same time had set up an international recruitment agency, which at that point was kind of 4 or 5 years old. And the idea for Hopscotch came about after a conversation over a drink, where I expressed my feelings about this situation. And we started talking about it, and by the end of the conversation we bought the URL basically for Hopscotch. It was called something different then. After research we changed it, and as I said, the company is now 3 years old. We are currently looking for investment actually to take it to the next level, because we've realised that this issue of women in work is not just about mums, it's not just about flexible work, it's about opportunity for women in general. And solving that issue for any industry, from any perspective, will make a huge difference, not just for women, not just regionally, not just within a certain sector, but actually globally. And there are so many statistics that prove that point. One of them being, if men and women participated in the workforce equally, $13 trillion would be added to global GDP. So, these studies have been done, so this is where we're trying to get to. And what I wanted to point out in this conversation are really, from a business perspective and from a women's perspective, there are three key things that we've noticed, having set up the company, that genuinely help to get to some kind of gender parity or to some kind of equality where women are concerned. The first, I'll touch on them very briefly. I could go on about them for ages, but I won't for you. The first one is parental leave. So not just maternity leave, but paternity leave is equally as important. It doesn't matter where you're from in the world, it differs everywhere. So at home in the UK, where I'm from, you can have a year. When we started up in Dubai, the standard was 45 calendar days, not even 45 days, 45 calendar days. So when your baby's 6 weeks old, you're back at work. Here, obviously, it's a little bit longer, but it's still a relatively short period. And generally, wherever you are in the world, dads get maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, and that's kind of it. The issue there is obviously that the onus is then completely focused on the woman to do that job, and that's not necessarily fair. It's not necessarily the best way of approaching a family. Men need to be involved as well and need to understand the juggling act that goes on. And if you put all of the emphasis on women, and yes, you give them maternity leave, you give them back to work opportunities, all they're doing is adding to their plate the whole time, and actually it's not really resolving the core issues around gender parity. So that's one thing. If you run a company, give men and women equal opportunity to take that leave. And actually there are studies that have been done. So Sweden has an equal parental leave policy, and in that country 80% of first-time mothers go back to work. That's the highest percentage of women that go back to work anywhere in the working world. The second thing that's super important is support and training within an organisation. So how many of you, for example, feel that you've ever had adequate support and training within a company that you work with? Meaning that it doesn't really exist, and it needs to start right at the beginning, it needs to start right at the bottom, it needs to start actually from school age, because a lot of these things that we talk about, where women are too scared to put their hands up, where women, don't offer themselves up for opportunities, comes down to confidence and comes down to a way that girls are being spoken to and spoken about in society. And personally, I have 2 daughters, I do my best not to do that, but part of it is unconscious bias as well. So that's one thing. Training once you get into an organisation to prepare women, to future-proof them, because inevitably, I would say the majority of women that I work with are mums. Many women will become mums at some point. Your career that you start at 21 is not always going to be workable for you at 30 or 35 or 45. So how do you future-proof yourself? How do you stay relevant? How do you make sure your skills are transferable? How do you put that across on a CV or in an interview? Those types of things are super important, as well as all the hard skills that you can learn from training and those sorts of things. And where Hopscotch is concerned, we are affiliated with lots of different groups like Girls in Tech, lots of different trainers actually in this region and globally, who come into companies and help women and men understand what those issues are and to get around them and to resolve them, so that women are retained in the workforce and not lost at a point where actually they have 10 or 15 years of amazing skills that they should be adding to any kind of company. The third and final thing is flexibility. It's the reason that I started Hopscotch. And flexibility can come in so many different forms. It can be an extra 20 minutes at lunchtime so that somebody can go and pick up their kid from school. It can be flexible start times, flexible end times. It can be work from home policies. And some of the best companies that we work with, the Nestle's, the EYs, the MasterCards of the world, all have these amazing flexible work policies. And you see the difference internally in the number of women who are at senior level in those companies. So Nestle, for example, has equal flexibility for men and for women, as does MasterCard. And both of them have seen the level of women at senior levels in their organisations double in the last 3 years. And that's because, again, the onus cannot just be on women. It can't just be a conversation about, women can have 4-day working weeks, or women can work freelance or work from home or work around children's school hours. It has to be an equal responsibility, and really that starts at home. And the only way that can work is if companies are taking the onus on them and to push that forward. So those are the three kind of things that we think are important where Hopscotch is concerned. And certainly from our perspective, you know, our programs that we offer for women, like we have 4 return to work programs happening at the moment, which are basically internships for mums who have left the workforce, or women who have left the workforce for whatever reason. And those are running with Kantar, with Facebook, with British High Commission. So there are companies out there that genuinely care, that are genuinely pushing to make a difference. But it's really only the start. So I hope that, you know, as Hopscotch we can continue on this journey, and we will have lots more events, particularly where tech is concerned as well. We've got stuff coming up with Google in the future, with Accenture, with various other companies here. So if you're interested in those sorts of things, just come and grab me at the end and I can tell you a bit more. But yeah, to basically sign up at hopscotch.work and you'll get all the information anyway. But yeah, that's part of my personal experience, I guess, and really my perspective on how we can engage women in the workforce as much as they should be.
Great, thank you, brilliant.